Keto and crime, keto and crime. We uncover the grime on keto and crime. Keto and crime, keto and crime. Now is the time for keto and crime.
Hey everyone, welcome to Keto and Crime. Today we've got Girls Gone Wild. Yes, the story of Joe Francis' epic franchise known as Girls Gone Wild. I think those of us that are Gen X or a little bit older, baby boomers, maybe some millennials remember it, but if you watched television after prime time at all, after 10 p.m., you saw infomercials for Girls Gone Wild, so you are well aware of what it is. But did you know of all the controversy and lawsuits surrounding it? That's what we're going to talk about as the latest installment in our exploitation series. So, with that being said, a huge shout out to my patrons, my channel members. Love you, all my loyal subscribers. If you'd like to join them, those buttons are down below. If you'd like to make a one-time donation to the channel, that's also below. Also, help out by supporting our sponsor, Keto Crisp. I'll link that down below. And with all that linked down below, let's get started with something that's not linked down below, this story. Also, yes, Christmas stuff is still up, but it's becoming winter stuff. As you can see, the gnomes are no longer being executed behind me. It's been replaced with snowflakes and icicles. And this will gradually transform into a winter tree and then probably a Valentine's tree because, I don't know, I like it. It cheers up the office. Also, it's kind of cold here today, and I kind of sit in the doorway where it's a little chilly, so hence the jacket. So, with that being said, let's dive into it. Girls Gone Wild was an adult entertainment franchise, and if you've ever seen those late night infomercials, which they became famous for, you know that it was direct marketed. It was basically VHS and later on DVDs that you could order from a 1-800 number, later on online, and for extended payments, and they would send you to it. It was video, basically college girls going wild at things like spring break all over the world. And the mainstay is that they would actually film them when they got everybody's consent, but still, they would film them while they were rather inebriated, and they would do the things that you do, let's say when you're at Mardi Gras in your 20s and you're getting some beads. Let's just leave it at that. But it was created by Joe Francis in 1997, and he was also occasionally in the videos as the host, but most of the time he was behind the camera. And basically, it was a pioneer of direct marketing, infomercials. We all of us Gen Xers remember infomercials, where it was literally 30-minute commercials for something that you would, as said, had to call a 1-800 number and order. And so they were pioneers of that, starting out with VHS, DVDs, and later on going to streaming and downloads behind a paywall. Same kind of thing, same kind of direct marketing. But let's talk about the founder of it, Joe Francis. He was born April 1st, 1973 in Atlanta, Georgia, to Raymond and Maria Francis. Maria was from Austria, and according to Francis, they left Atlanta when he was 7 years old and moved to Newport Beach, California, that is where he got interested in beach culture, and you'll see a lot of that influence in Girls Gone Wild. But he attended Our Lady of Queens of Angels Catholic Elementary School, and then a series of boarding schools, because he came from a very well-blessed upper middle class family. Lived in Laguna Beach, attended Laguna Beach High School, And his first job after high school was as a working as a computer technician, computer repair person, and at a video store. So when the early days of computers, you could actually take your computer to a small independent shop and get it repaired. He worked at one of those. And same with video stores. Many of my fond memories are exploring either Blockbuster Video or our local hometown video store and picking out my weekend's entertainment. So that's where he got a love of video and realized that video production is probably where the future was going. And he was right. He attended USC, University of Southern California, majoring in business, and also concentrating in entrepreneurial studies, which would go on to serve him well. He took a lot of courses in film and television production. Like I said, working at the video store got him interested in video production. And he graduated in 1995 with a bachelor's degree in entrepreneurship, and that's just a contradiction in words. Gen X, we went to college just because that's what we were told we were supposed to do. And we took out lots of loans and told that any degree would get you a good job. And that was true in our generation, not so much now where everything's so specialized. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, you don't need to go to college unless you want to be like a doctor, a dentist, eye doctor, accountant that wants to open up their own practice. Then you need to go major in those specialized degrees, but not just entrepreneurship. So don't do that. If you have a child or a nephew, niece, cousin, brother, sister that are wanting to major in entrepreneurship, talk them out of it. They just need to go out and start a business. Small scale. It can be done. Rant over. He got his first job in video production working for Real TV, which was one of the pioneers of reality television. It was syndicated, so it ran on all different networks, all different local stations. But what it was kind of riding the coattails of America's Funniest Home Videos. And by the way, rest in peace, Bob Saget, one of the greatest comedians ever. But it was riding the coattails of America's Funniest Home Videos and the whole amateur video craze. And what it was a syndicated television show that just ran footage, either captured by professionals or amateurs, of extraordinary events that weren't covered by mainstream news. So he began working as a production assistant for Real TV. And during that time, he noticed how much great footage of stuff that might have been on the little risque side ended up on the cutting room floor or not used because it was too graphic for mainstream television. And he decided that in that cut footage was the idea for a great business. And so he came up with his first idea, banned from television. And he started taking this graphic footage, looping it together, much like he would Girls Gone Wild much later, into VHS tapes, and then selling it through infomercials, which we've already discussed, are 30-minute long commercials of direct to consumer, where you can call and order your own entertainment. He released it in 1998, the very first video, and he had 2 follow-up sequels. So there was Banned from Television 1, 2, and 3. And among the most controversial footage that was included on those VHS tapes were assassinations of a couple of public figures, a hotel fire where you could literally see people jumping from windows rather than, die in the fire, and a woman that was hit by a high-speed train near Chicago, Illinois. So very controversial, including, like I said, executions, attempted suicides, that sort of thing. But of course, as you can imagine, quite controversial. He got a lot of attention and it sold quite well. So he decided that maybe he could branch out, because he had become fascinated with some footage that he had licensed. Like, he bought all this footage and paid Real TV and the ones that sent it to Real TV for the footage. And he became kind of intrigued by the footage of spring break and what the drunk college students were doing, men and women. So he became quite interested in that and decided that he could take that footage and come up with its own series, and hence Girls Gone Wild. So he came up with the idea of Girls Gone Wild even before he released the first banned from television. It was released in 1998, whereas he got the idea for Girls Gone Wild and started producing it at roughly the same time, and Girls Gone Wild would end up being released first in 1997. And by 2001, they had sold, between DVDs and VHS, they had sold almost 5 million videos. Just Girls Gone Wild, not even counting the very successful banned from television. And by the end of 2002, the company had produced 83 different titles, banned from television, Girls Gone Wild, Guys Gone Wild, a lot of different titles. And their infomercials, which became world famous. He was right up there with Don Lepre and Amazing Discoveries. And those of you in Gen X will know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe I'll do a video on what happened to the famous infomercial stars. If you would like me to do that, put that down below. I think that would be interesting. But he was airing on all the major networks, including ETV, BET, Comedy Central, Style. If you watch late night television, you saw at least 2 Girls Gone Wild or banned from television or Guys Gone Wild infomercials during the hours of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. You at least saw that. And by 2008, Joe Francis himself was worth $150 million. Dude bought an island. You know, he was just that wealthy off our need to see things that probably aren't good for us mentally, to be quite honest. But if you're purchasing a Girls Gone Wild or Guys Gone Wild VHS, are you really thinking with your brain? Probably not. So, and the franchise was mainstream. Mark Wahlberg had a t-shirt on at one point. Snoop Dogg and Eminem actually appeared in a couple of the infomercials and the videos. And MGM was at one point going to make a full-length movie based on the content. So it's going to be one of those raunchy sex comedies. But basically, beyond the footage that he gleaned from the banned TV footage, where did he get his content? Well, he started producing it himself. Instead of just Girls Gone Wild was his first foray into not just reproducing other people's footage. He decided to make his own footage because there's only so much footage that he already licensed that was the content that he needed. So he hired a production crew. He went out and he started going to famous hot spots around the country and basically asking people, did they want to be in Girls Gone Wild? Sometimes paying them, always getting them to sign a consent, but setting up t-shirt contests, you know, stuff at Mardi Gras, and he started getting his own footage. Basically, same thing with Guys Gone Wild. He would, which were mostly chest shots, maybe some blow shots, I don't know. But that's what he did. He went from just reproducing other people's footage to creating his own with this franchise. As I said, it was mainstream until it wasn't. Celebrities, merch, a potential movie, even a soundtrack. I'm not sure what was on that. But they even did a fundraiser for Katrina, where they did a Mardi Gras themed video, and all the proceeds went to help victims of Katrina. And basically, from Girls Gone Wild came Guys Gone Wild. Where you had an entirely female production crew that would entice these men to do the same things that the girls were doing in Girls Gone Wild. And he marketed this stuff to where it would be most wanted. The Girls Gone Wild was marketed to straight men and lesbians, whereas Guys Gone Wild marketed to gay men and women, and straight women. So he knew exactly what he was doing. And he made a lot of money doing it. And it was mainstream. It was a very popular brand until it wasn't. And why wasn't it? Because of the controversy surrounding it. One of the earliest controversies in 2007, a young woman by the name of Alexandra Dupre alleged that Francis and his film crew filmed her without permission and sued him for several $1,000,000 until he released footage of her actually signing the consent, and it was dropped. Kind of a money grab. But 2 other girls that same year accused Francis of filming them as underage minors. He represented himself in that trial until the judge cited him because he was asking pretty disdainful questions to the women during cross-examination, like, "Are you a hooker?" But he went out and hired 2 lawyers that same day to finish the trial and ultimately pled no contest to it, which meant not really innocent, but not really guilty. It probably had to do with the fact that they probably had fake IDs because, like I said, a lot of this took place at places like Mardi Gras and in clubs and on the beach, you know, during spring break. So a lot of these underage kids probably had IDs and it looked like they were legal. They probably signed a consent, but yet they were underage. So he pled no contest because he's not really guilty, not really innocent, but it was just kind of a status quo. 2008, a Missouri woman also claimed that she was filmed without consent when a Girls Gone Wild contractor, like he didn't hire actual employees, he had independent contractors, removed her halter top at a St. Louis bar. And then the jury did find that she consented because they produced the signed documents. And on retrial, she was actually awarded $5.77 million after Joe Francis just didn't show up. So he won the first one. She sued him again. He didn't show up. She was awarded. But on appeal, the judge did uphold that, so Francis ended up having to pay her $5 million. 4 women later that same year claimed that they suffered emotional distress by being shown in a Girls Gone Wild video. But an all-female jury found that they had consented and knew exactly what they were getting into. So I think a lot of these defamation suits were just regret. I'm not saying that what he did was an upstanding, great, honorable type of business, but it was a business and he did get consent. And as far as he knew, they were all, of age. So I think a lot of it was just, regret. If you don't want to be in a Girls Gone Wild film, don't sign the consent and don't flash your boobies to the camera or whatever else you're flashing. I mean, there's a little bit of personal responsibility in that. In February 2012, a civil suit between Steve Wynn of Wynn Casinos and Hotels. If you do anything in gambling, if you've been to Las Vegas, Reno, Atlantic City, any of those, you've seen a Wynn property. Now, Steve Wynn owns the Golden Nugget, Treasure Island, the Bellagio, lots of them in Mississippi. He owns Wynn River Resorts and Casinos along the California coastline. He owns most anything to do with gambling and casinos. Steve Wynn is in on it. So basically there was a lawsuit where Joe Francis, who was an avid gambler, refused to pay his gambling debt. And Steve Wynn sued him, and then Joe Francis turned around and said some defamatory things about Steve Wynn. But basically what had happened, Joe Francis had been gambling in Wynn properties between 2008 and 2010, racked up gambling debt of over $2 million, and wrote a bad check to cover it. The Nevada county sheriff attempted to prosecute him for that, but somehow it fell outside a 6-month statute of limitations because a lot of it happened 2 years prior. And then Wynn turned around and sued him to try to collect it. And basically, Joe Francis said that Wynn threatened to kill him, alleging that Wynn had mob ties, which probably does because Vegas was built by the mob, essentially. And so Wynn continued to try to sue him for that, as well as the defamation case, and basically they came to it came to a head in 2012, and basically in the end, Francis was ordered to pay Wynn $19 million for punitive and defamation as well as the original debt, because according to the Steve Wynn's attorneys, the whole controversy was huge damage to his reputation and the reputation of his properties. So in the end, Francis had to pay $19 million. Now those are only the civil lawsuits. Now criminal, there was several. Going back to 2003, Panama City Beach, Florida attempted to halt Girls Gone Wild filming for violating public indecency statutes, but Francis tried to sue them for First Amendment rights violations, and even though he won that case and he was there filming, the city then arrested him for racketeering, and he was released on bond. And then at the actual trial in 2006, the judge disallowed most of the evidence and dismissed most of the charges because, according to the judge, it was just the city's way of trying to get even with Francis because Francis beat their original attempt to shut him down. They did eventually get him on record keeping because of the way he paid his contractors and even some of the participants. And he was actually fined $1.6 million and sentenced to community service for that. And he was later upped more fines because while he was serving his sentence, his short sentence while awaiting bond, he had a cell phone in his cell and fast food burgers, which you're not allowed to have. He had bribed a guard to get those things. So he ended up having to pay additional fines for that. But he did serve 339 days in jail plus community service and paid over $60,000 in fines for that, ultimately beating most of the charges. The federal government got involved later that same year by filing a complaint against Girls Gone Wild, alleging that when customers called in to order, they were under the assumption they were getting one VHS or one DVD only, but actually they were being signed up for a subscription model where they would continuously ship and bill them. And then the whole myriad of issues you have to go through to return something or cancel a subscription. We all know when we've signed up for a free trial or get locked into a subscription service we didn't really want, and how you have to run around trying to get that canceled. Well, they actually enforced this on them, and they agreed to settle for $1.1 million and to disclose that it was a subscription service, not a one-time purchase. But as you can see today, that still happens a lot because this was one of the landmark cases that said, oh, you have to disclose that it's a subscription service, not a one-time purchase. And then in 2004, a man named Darnell Riley broke into Francis's home, tied him up, and basically held him at gunpoint and forced him to strip on camera, and then attempted to blackmail him not to release the footage. Basically, Francis said, release it. I don't care. And so Riley ended up going to jail for it. Francis paid him no money because, let's face it, Joe Francis, look at the business he's in. He doesn't care. And Riley's defense was that mafia, in basically revenge for a lot of his tie-ins with casinos and stuff, trying to get him to do it, but it was never proven. 2007 and 2008, he was indicted by the federal government on tax evasion because a former accountant with whom Francis had a disagreement was let go from the company, and the accountant actually went under the Whistleblowers Protection Program and reported all of the stuff that Francis wasn't reporting. And as a result, he had to settle that. He also, in 2009, was accused of bribery and filing a false return and ended up having to pay over $250,000 in restitution to the IRS. And just before the whole debacle with Stephen Wynn, he had gotten himself into trouble because he brought 3 women home to his own house and kept them there for a night of fun. And then later on, they accused him of false imprisonment and assaults. And of later on trying to bribe a witness in that trial. He was convicted in 2013 on all of the charges, and he had faced a minimum of 5 years in prison or $13,000 in fines. Francis did an interview with a Hollywood Reporter calling all the witnesses, the judge, the jury mentally retarded and suggesting they should be euthanized. He later apologized for that, but stated that he had been manipulated by the media. And he was sentenced to serve 270 days in county jail, had 36 months of probation, and had to pay a myriad of fines. In 2015, Girls Gone Wild filed for bankruptcy to block the myriad of other civil suits that were coming in, and to basically dissolve the company and to basically allow Francis to abscond with some of his own money. And in 2015, a federal court judge issued an arrest warrant for Francis after he failed to do the payment terms laid out in the bankruptcy. And Francis and his girlfriend and their twin daughters and his higher-ups fled to Mexico, and that's where they live today, living high on the hog because the extradition treaty between Mexico and the U.S. does not cover civil issues, which a bankruptcy would fall under. And so, as a result, he was able to sell what was left of his company to Bang Bros, which is basically a porno studio, and they now own the Girls Gone Wild, Guys Gone Wild, banned from TV brands, and are doing their own thing with it, video streaming. Feel free to go check that out. But that's where Francis is today, is living high on the hog in Mexico. And so it just shows how there really is a market for everything. That's all I can say about Girls Gone Wild. But I remember it, from my teen and young 20-something years, and it was just kind of a mainstay. So you never know the truth behind things. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back really soon with more videos, live streams. We'll keep talking some true crime. And with that being said, keto and crime.